Today we're going to talk about the major differences between the no contact rule and ghosting. And I thought it would be kind of fun to throw in the silent treatment as well, since these are kind of like the three pillars of silence when it comes to breakups. So here's the thing. Really, when you're looking at things or concepts like the no contact rule or ghosting, on the surface they kind of appear to be the same thing. With the no contact rule, you're ignoring your ex. With ghosting, you are cutting someone off. On the surface, they are kind of like the same thing, and yet they're really not. So let's just kind of go through each one of the three pillars of silence and define what they are, starting with the no contact rule. The no contact rule is essentially this period of time where you're purposefully ignoring your ex after a breakup. This means if they reach out to you through text message or call you on the phone, you're not responding to them. Now, the intent of this tactic should be used to give yourself time to heal from the breakup and give them time to calm down. We'll get a little bit more into the nuances as we go through this video, but on the outset, that's the no contact rule. Generally speaking, the no contact rule will be anywhere between 21 or 45 days. So usually about a month to a month and a half after a breakup, ideally you should be using a no contact rule. Ghosting, on the other hand, seems like it's very similar. You're having someone where they cut off all communication with you, but there are a few subtle differences. Generally speaking, we find that ghosting happens more with or as a breakup, meaning you're in a relationship with someone and then all of a sudden they just disappear. Usually it's not as cut and dry or hot and cold as they're there one moment and they're not there the other moment. There's usually a gradual regression towards the full-on ghosting, but eventually a ghosting does occur. Now, one of the things with ghosting is with the no contact rule, usually there's this period of time where you know you're going to be ignoring your ex and then you're going to be getting back in touch with your ex. Well, with ghosting, it's kind of left up for grabs. It's sort of meant to be indefinite. And then, for good reason, we can talk about the silent treatment. Now, the silent treatment we find happens more in relationships as opposed to in breakups, though it can happen in breakups. So usually the silent treatment is this manipulative ploy to sort of harm someone emotionally or gain control of a situation when there's a perceived slight. So imagine you and I get into an argument and we're in a relationship. One of the things that you can do to kind of get back at me for that argument is to all of a sudden give me the silent treatment for a few hours. Or we're even finding the silent treatment can be versions of conversations you're having where that person you're with or your partner is extremely short with you. Or they're giving you one-word text message responses where clearly they're indicating something's wrong, but they're not willing to talk about it. It's kind of the ultimate passive-aggressive way of approaching a relationship. And usually what happens is people who are like this are a lot more prone to having ghosting behaviors. Real quick, I want to say that if you're new to this YouTube channel or you're trying to figure out what you should be doing to get your ex back and you're trying to learn if you even have a chance in your specific circumstance, probably the smartest thing for you to do is actually stop by our website, www.exboyfriendrecovery.com, or take our Ex Recovery Chances quiz that can be found at exboyfriendrecovery.com. Now, if you're watching this on YouTube, taking that free quiz is super easy to do. All you have to simply do is look in the description link below this YouTube video and click on the link you see there. It will take you directly to the quiz where you can fill it out and get an easy answer on what you should be doing going forward and overall what your chances look like in your specific situation. All right, so let's get you back to the video. So when you're looking at the big differences between the no contact rule, ghosting, the silent treatment, really there's a couple of criteria you need to keep an eye out for. The first one is the timing of when perceived ghosting or no contact occurs. Generally speaking, if you're ghosting someone, it's happening as the breakup is occurring. Literally, they just disappear one day. With the no contact rule, it's happening after the breakup has occurred. Another big difference between the two is with ghosting, there's no predetermined length on how long the ghosting will occur. Though we are finding that as time goes on, the ghosting doesn't seem to be so permanent as you may believe, but that's missing the entire point. The intent of someone ghosting you is they don't want to talk to you ever again, and they're cool cutting you out of their life. With the no contact rule, on the other hand, well, you're using this period of time to heal, and then you're going to get back in touch with your ex. And then finally, the biggest difference in my opinion has to do with the intent of the tactics. So this is something that I don't really see anyone talking about, but if you really think about it, ghosting is a symptom of avoidant behavior. All right, so just like sort of no contact is a symptom of anxious behavior. Let me explain. So as you probably have known if you've been watching my YouTube channel, roughly around 80% of the people who will try a no contact rule will fail it their very first time. Why? Well, simply put, they have extremely anxious tendencies. It's really hard to ignore your ex, someone you love, maybe more than anything else or anyone else right now. It's hard to ignore that person when they're in pain, where they're telling you you're immature for not talking to them. They're making you feel bad about the breakup. Maybe they're saying incredibly mean things. Maybe you're worried about them moving on to someone else. It's extremely hard to keep those anxious tendencies at bay, so you often break the no contact rule. On the other hand, ghosting has more to do with avoidant issues. So it's an issue symptomatic of something happening within your ex. If your ex ghosts you, what that tells me is that he or she has extreme avoidant tendencies. When things become intimate, when things become very, very serious, where their independence potentially gets threatened, they respond by pushing you away, and ghosting is a huge way of doing that. I think another undervalued fact about no contact versus ghosting is, well, when you look at our success stories, many of them, maybe over 75 to 90%, I can't remember the exact statistic in my head right now, but I know it's over 70%, have used some form of no contact in successfully repairing their relationships. Why is it that they aren't using ghosting in repairing their relationships? Well, simply put, ghosting is kind of like a version of indefinite no contact, but I think it has to do with our method of no contact. We're big believers in having the correct intent with no contact. Many people, especially who have anxious tendencies, tend to focus on no contact, not for self-growth, not for healing after a breakup, but simply because they know there are techniques in psychology or psychological aspects in there that can make an ex miss them. So they hyper-focus on that, which entirely misses the point of the no contact rule. Just watch any of our success stories and you'll see me silently or very subtly probing them to try to ask them, hey, how did you spend your time during no contact? And usually what you'll find from our success stories, people I've interviewed on this exact YouTube channel, is they'll say, you know what, I really wanted my ex back at first, like more than anything. I wanted to use the no contact rule because I thought it would make them miss me. But over time, as silence occurred, as I was forced to think inwardly and improve inwardly, I kind of got to this point where I just didn't want my ex back anymore. And I was okay with that. And by the time I finished no contact and got back in touch with them, it gave me this extra boost of confidence. It gave me this extra swagger, if you will. And they started responding to that. Why? The secret sauce with the no contact rule that no one really likes to talk about because it's not the sexy thing to say is the no contact rule is all about helping you exhibit more secure behaviors. And naturally, people are drawn to secure individuals. So if you have an avoidant ex, which if your ex ghosted you, for example, you have an avoidant ex. Eventually, that avoidant ex will go through this period of nostalgia where they start to romanticize the relationship. Generally speaking, that period is when they get back in touch with you. And yet, if they get back in touch with the version of you that just was basically the same version you were towards the end of your relationship where all sorts of problems were present, they're not going to be very attractive to that version. Not to say you're not attractive or you need to change your personality, but one thing that you can do is shift your behavioral circumstances. You can become more secure. And part of being secure is being okay with being alone. And the no contact rule is meant to help you achieve that mentality.